You know what's wild? Dante Graves didn't resist when Brent Rollins, the cop, who killed his son, punched him in the courtroom. Not because Dante was weak, but because he's black, and they shoved him to the back, misspelled his name, searched his bag like he was guilty before trial. Blood dripped from Dante's jaw. Rollins smirked like justice was served, and not a single person moved. But here's the thing: Dante's a former Navy SEAL who survived Kandahar, and this time, he didn't come to die. The courtroom doors hissed open, that cold institutional sound. Dante walked in like he owned nothing but carried everything: tall, broad-shouldered, plain white shirt sticking to his back like a flag refusing to lower. Not one person welcomed him. Every eye was sharp, suspicious, like he was a threat just by breathing the same air. A security guard pointed him to the back row without a word or even a nod, just the assumption that's always there when a black man walks alone through a temple of whiteness. No one checked Rollins' name. No one searched his bag. No misspellings. No foreshadows for him. Dante sat beneath a flickering light, staring at his wrong name on a laminated tag. Danton Greaves, wrong spelling. Wrong man. He didn't bother correcting it anymore. Mistakes like that weren't accidents. They were messages. Rollins was 3 rows ahead, smirking like the courtroom was his stage. He muttered, "I thought he died in the desert, buried somewhere in Kandahar." His lawyer didn't respond. Knowing silence was the best defense. Dante's face was carved from stone, his eyes cold and still. They didn't flinch, didn't follow Rollins. They pinned him like a nail on a board, indifferent to the venom dripping from that smirk. Dante noticed the small sounds: a tap of heels, the clerk's pens, the low murmurs, but mostly the way everyone leaned into Rollins, like sunflowers toward a polluted sun. The judge hadn't arrived, but the room was already decided. The wood-paneled walls seemed to judge quietly, flags hanging limp behind the bench, the country's silence sewn into fabric. Then came the photo. A police dash cam still Marcus Elijah Graves. Dante's sun eyes wide open, face bruised and bloodied, mouth slightly open as if caught mid-prayer or mid-sentence. The room didn't breathe. The silence was a clenched fist tightening on every throat. Dante didn't move, but his finger trembled, a ripple breaking the surface of his iron control. Rollins yawned theatrically, bored with the same damn photo shown over and over. But Dante knew the photo they showed wasn't the whole truth. The image was sanitized blood wiped away, the brutality erased. So without drama, Dante stood and laid down his own photo on the prosecutor's table, uncut, unfiltered, raw. The blood, the cuts, the stains of violence no bureaucracy could clean away. The prosecution's version was edited to hide the cruelty. A uniformed officer whispered loudly enough for some to hear, "Why's he gotta make it so dramatic?" Dante's voice dropped low, razor sharp. "Because you never had to bury your son with half his skull caved in." The officer looked away, muttering nonsense, pretending not to hear. Rollins chuckled, folding his arms. "Guy should have stayed overseas, more useful dodging bullets than whining about dead kids." Dante sat slowly, eyes forward, his hand rubbing dried blood from the photo onto his cuff, not hidden, not cleaned. The judge called a recess, court staff bustling to mask the raw truth just shown. But the silence had teeth now. The jury wasn't bored. The courtroom wasn't laughing. Everyone was looking at Dante, the man who didn't cry, didn't yell, didn't lose control, yet made the air feel sharp enough to cut. The defense lawyer's voice was clinical, detached. The officer responded to perceived threat during elevated tension. Behavior consistent with resistance. The same cold legal language, stripping the boy's humanity. Dante sat, gazing down at a crumpled page, the original incident report before edits and redactions, where it said clearly, "The victim showed no visible signs of aggression." That line was crossed out, erased. Dante waited, then asked quietly but with terrible precision, "How exactly does a person show cooperation while being beaten to death in a parked car?" The room held its breath. The lawyer smiled without eyes. "We're not here to speculate on hypotheticals, Mr. Graves." Dante's voice was colder than a smile. "That was no hypothetical. That was my son," Rollins muttered, thinking ink on paper could wash the blood off his hands. Dante raised the original report, exposing the edits made to protect the system, not the truth. The courtroom leaned in, the weight of the words bending the air like gravity. The defense tried to frame it as tragedy and mistakes, but Dante stopped them cold. Stop calling it tragedy. Tragedy is lightning hitting a playground. What happened to my son was a choice, one man, one badge, one fist. Rollins scoffed, mocking the Holy Father routine. But Dante wasn't there for theatrics. He was there to hold a mirror, and that mirror shattered every lie the system told. Then came the punch. Rollins closed the distance, voice dripping venom. In here, you're just a failed father. Your boy died screaming, didn't he? Before Dante could react, the fist cracked into his jaw like a rifle shot. Blood sprayed. The courtroom gasped, but no one moved. No bailiff, no guard, just stunned silence. A sanctioned brutality frozen in time. Dante staggered, but didn't fall not broken, not defeated, just still. Rollins smiled like he owned the place, but Dante's one narrowed eye, swelling cheek, and cold surgical stare promised something darker: extinction, not vengeance, but the kind of silence that devours. The judge slammed her gavel, shouting, "This court is not a battlefield. You are in contempt." Rollins snapped, but Dante just asked quietly, "Permission to remain seated?" The judge nodded, stunned. The silence shifted. Rollins lost his swagger, unsure, uneasy. Dante's stillness had become his dominion. Then Dante moved. Without a word, with military precision, he struck smooth, controlled, devastating. The kick hit Rollins' sternum, sending him crashing backward against the witness table with a thunderous crash. The courtroom inhaled and froze. No gasps, no screams, just the weight of consequence. Rollins lay winded, coughing, defeated by a man who wasn't there to fight, but to remind the room what justice looks like when it's been denied. Dante pulled from his pocket a bent name tag, placed it on Rollins' chest. "Marcus Graves," he said softly, "don't forget again." Then he walked away, blood on his lip, silence behind him, leaving the courtroom forever changed. That moment exploded across social media. Hashtags trended, videos looped, veterans and strangers alike shared the clip. That's not a punch, that's the system getting audited. Dante wasn't just a grieving father anymore. He was a soldier, a reckoning walking through the halls of power that had long ignored him. Behind the scenes, allies like Colton Mears, a former Army Ranger turned attorney, dug through boxes of hidden complaints 16 filed, dismissed, erased. The system protected brutality, masked it as discipline and protocol, while innocent lives slipped away. Email showed Rollins was praised for reducing crime in high-risk minority neighborhoods by preemptive intervention, a code word for unchecked violence. A leaked audio of Rollins laughing about tackling innocent black kids by accident spread like wildfire. Dante listened, unmoved but burning with purpose. The Department of Justice launched a formal investigation. Charges followed. Rollins' medals were stripped. Former colleagues distanced themselves. The badge, once armor, now a mark of infection. Rollins spiraled, shouting in a hospital room, smashing his head against walls. The system had rejected him, and in return, he was broken. Meanwhile, a former internal affairs officer named Samuel Price testified to his role in burying the truth. Dante faced him calmly, reading aloud the lies signed in ink, no signs of violence before incident. Price broke down, swallowed by shame. The public reckoning wasn't about vengeance. It was about exposing complicity, forcing a system to remember what it had tried to erase. Dante didn't seek glory or headlines. He walked away quietly, carrying the weight of a truth heavier than any verdict. His son's blood-stained shirt became a silent witness at hearings and public spaces, a wound no law could cleanse. The Graves Act passed a law mandating body cameras and accountability, inspired not by politics, but by a father's kick that shattered silence. Dante declined honors and speeches. He didn't want to be a hero. He just wanted to be his son's father. And when a 10-year-old wrote him a letter saying, "They almost put me in the back of a car," But they let me go because the camera was on. Because of you. Thank you. Dante didn't smile or cry. He folded the letter, burned it, whispering, I don't want to be your hero. I just wanted to be his father. Years later, Rollins' name was scrubbed from plaques and news reduced to initials, redacted for humanitarian reasons. Dante fought to restore it, insisting the world remember the full truth, no matter how uncomfortable. The courtroom emptied. The fight moved beyond gavels and verdicts into classrooms, community halls, and the quiet resolve of those who choose not to stay silent anymore. Dante stood alone at his son's grave, hand trembling but steady on the cold marble. He whispered, It's done, but inside he knew it was just the beginning. Because silence isn't peace. Silence is a verdict waiting to be broken.